This week on Vaticano, we ponder whether Catholic doctrine can be changed by the majority of the faithful gathered at a synod.
It is ultimately not.
Learn from the experts what the so-called synodal process in the Church means, and whether the synodal way in Germany, which questions Catholic doctrine, has the right to change it. But now tune in for recent news from the Holy See. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. This year, the Catholic Church is celebrating the Ignatian Year in honor of St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuit order, and St. Francis Xavier. The year will conclude on the July 31st, 2022 feast day of St. Ignatius, but the peak of the celebrations fell on March the 12th, the 400th anniversary of his and St. Francis Xavier's canonization. EWTN contributed to the celebrations with a special docudrama about the life of the patron saint of missionary work. Co-produced with Cristiana Video, the film was presented a week before the major celebrations at Rome's Chiesa del Gesù. The first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, visited the relics of St. Ignatius and St. Francis Xavier in the very same Church of Jesus and participated in the Holy Mass. Jesuit Superior General, Father Arturo Sosa, presided over the celebration. The Holy Father appealed to the Society of Jesus with a message of unity.
We belong to Jesus, and we belong to Him as a society. Let us never tire of asking for the strength to form and foster communion, to be a leaven of fraternity for the Church and for the world.
Pope Francis warned about the risk of falling into a static faith, while not, in fact, following Jesus.
Brothers, for the followers of Jesus, now is not a time for slipping, for letting our souls be sedated, anesthetized by today's consumerist and individualistic culture, by the attitude of, life is good, as long as it's good for me.
The Holy Father also highlighted as role models the saints who share the canonization anniversary with Ignatius, such as Teresa of Avila and Francis Xavier. Pope Francis is the first Jesuit to ever ascend to the papal throne. What makes this special is that the Jesuits must take a vow when they enter the order that they will not seek ecclesiastical office. If a Jesuit is to be ordained a bishop, it's only if he's required to do so by the Pope. That the Jesuit Jorge Mario Bergoglio could eventually become Pope Francis is because he accepted his election out of obedience to the authority of the College of Cardinals.
Recemos para que podamos dar una respuesta cristiana a los retos de la bioética.
For the month of March, Pope Francis' prayer intentions are centered on respect for human life and dignity, while facing the ever-growing challenges of modern-day bioethics. Pope Francis released a video promoting Christian responses to these bioethical challenges as part of the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network. This network is focused on spreading the Holy Father's monthly prayer intentions throughout the world in a series called The Pope Video. In this month's video, Pope Francis addresses the harmful effects of the throwaway culture, advocating for the rights of the unborn, the elderly, and the disabled.
Applications of biotechnologies must always be used based on respect for human dignity. For example, human embryos cannot be treated as disposable material to be discarded.
The Holy Father reminds the faithful that they must not hide from these issues. Rather, they must continue to fight for the defense of human dignity through prayer and discernment. However, this Christian response doesn't equate to halting progress and technological advances. Both progress and human dignity go hand in hand.
No se trata de frenar el progreso tecnológico.
It's about protecting both human dignity and progress. That is to say, we cannot pay the price of human dignity for progress. No, both go together in harmony.
Recemos.
The Holy Father is calling Christians to accompany this progress and continue to fight for the defense of human life through action and prayer.
Promuevan la defensa de la vida.
Hello, and welcome to this week's Faticano Updates. Pope Francis unceasingly calls for peace in Ukraine, condemning the war and calling it barbarism. The Holy Father warned against using God to justify violence, and in dramatic words he exclaimed, "In the name of God, I ask you to stop this massacre." Meanwhile, Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin spoke on the phone with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and insisted on respect for the civilian population and on humanitarian corridors. Over 2 million refugees left Ukraine and entered the European Union to save their lives. At the opening ceremony for the judicial year of the Vatican City-States Court, Pope Francis said judges must exercise honest listening without prejudice or preconceived notions. The Holy Father's remarks came on the eve of the Vatican financial trial, where ex-Cardinal Angelo Becciu is among the accused, and Pope Francis's voice was heard by the judges that are leading the case. Every Friday morning during the Lenten time, the preacher to the papal household, Cardinal Raniero Cantalamessa, is giving reflections to the Holy Father and the Roman Curia. This year, the catechesis is about the importance of the Eucharist. The event is reserved only for the Roman Curia, however, it is streamed live so everyone can participate online. As a part of the Lenten devotions in the Vatican, every Friday the faithful are also invited to pray the Stations of the Cross in St. Peter's Basilica. The last Via Crucis of this Lenten season will be prayed by Pope Francis himself on Good Friday. Pope Francis has contributed to the reinforcement of ecumenism by writing a foreword to a book of a Presbyterian minister, Marcelo Figueroa. In his foreword, the Pope emphasizes a vision of ecumenism that also consists of reconciled diversity, seeking and finding it together. The Vatican's Hospital and Medical Research Center, Policlinico Gemelli, has performed the first gynecological surgery in Europe with the help of a robot called Hugo. The hospital plans to use Hugo's robotic arms also for oncological pathologies and aim to perform increasingly complex and minimally invasive surgeries. Having this new instrument available makes the Vatican's hospital one of the more advanced hospitals in Europe. Thank you for joining us for this week's Vaticano Updates, and enjoy the rest of the program. I'm Rachel Lanz for EWTN Vaticano in Rome.
One of the important dimensions of this process is that we kneel down and we open our ears to the Word of God. Otherwise, I'm afraid that we will transform this ecclesial, profoundly ecclesial experience into a worldly experience, and this is not good.
6 months ago, Pope Francis began the first consultation phase leading up to the 2023 Synod of Bishops on the subject of synodality in the Church. In this first step, the laity, religious, and priests are invited to contribute with their prayers and their opinions on how they want to see the Church today. In 2023, the bishops will bring these ideas for a discussion in Rome for the second phase, and ultimately will present them to the Holy Father.
Well, I understand why Pope Francis insists that we should not approach this synodal experience by answering a questionnaire. This synodal process is not a sociological analysis of the Church, but it is a discernment process.
In order to understand well what synodality is according to Pope Francis, Vatican analyst Angela Ambrogetti says that we need to take a closer look at Pope Francis' background.
Questa è un'idea sua che viene dall'essere gesuita e dall'essere argentino, l'idea di popolo.
This is an idea of his that comes from being a Jesuit and from being Argentinian. The idea of the people as Christian identity. This idea he wants to carry into the Vatican Synod, so to speak, with a particular characteristic. He would love a permanent synodality. He would like it to be continuous. That the Synod would meet, or rather all Christians, all the faithful, would meet constantly and continuously.
Si riunissero in maniera costante e continua.
Prior and parallel to the first phase of the Synod of Bishops 2023, several countries, such as Australia, Ireland, Italy, and Germany, have initiated their own national synodal process, called the Cinada Path. The head of EWTN Germany, Martin Rottweiler, asserts that the synodal path in Germany, in addition to facing the clerical sex abuse crisis, has taken a controversial turn.
It is ultimately not just about dealing with the abuse. It is rather aiming at systematic and indeed substantial changes in the Church that were on the agenda of many even before the abuse cases became known, such as a far-reaching democratization of the Church, for example regarding the appointment of bishops, the abolition of the so-called compulsory celibacy, the admission of women to all ministries, and a change in Church doctrine, especially with regard to the sexuality of the human being, to name a few examples. The Synod of Bishops on Synodality, however, is, as Pope Francis emphasizes, above all about an inner conversion, about community, participation, and mission. Above all, the mission is not a special topic on the synodal way in Germany. To create a forum on evangelization was even rejected.
Despite controversial discussions at the German synodal way, the Secretariat General of the Synod of Bishops is open to accompanying each particular church in its synodal experience.
Synodality is constitutive, is an important dimension of the Church, and so every church, even a particular church, is encouraged to assume this synodal style, yet every synod has its own level of importance.
In this respect, there is no direct link between the two processes. What is comparable, though, is that in both processes it is emphasized to be on the way together, clergy and laity. However, while the synodal way in Germany has no relevance according to canon law and ultimately cannot make binding decisions, this is possible in the Synod of Bishops on synodality, but finally depending on the Pope's decision.
Questo percorso sinodale iniziamo con il chiederci tutti.
Non credo che Papa Francesco sarà molto.
I don't think Pope Francis is going to be very accepting of this idea. Why? He, as a good Jesuit, is a person of a very orthodox doctrine, very classic, very firm. His informal way of speaking does not mean that he has different ideas from the doctrinal point of view. And he has said it. He has made it clear several times on important issues such as abortion, such as gender, such as the right to life, and in the end, even on other issues. And very importantly, on the female priesthood and on other things. He has spoken clearly.
Lo ha detto in maniera chiara.
Neither the synodal way nor the Synod of Bishops has the power to change doctrine. The suggestions and ideas gathered throughout the world from all members of the Church will ultimately be offered to the Holy Father for his consideration.
He is Peter for the Church, and we have this trust in him. Through the Synod, bishops, Peter, listening to the people of God, obviously, will get more help, more assistance to help us to find truth.
Vatican is the smallest country, but its museums belong among the grandest in the world. Their origins date back to 1506, when Pope Julius II created the courtyard of the statues. 500 years later, the Vatican museums preserve and display the legacy of culture, history, and especially beauty that the Roman pontiffs have collected over the centuries. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, visitor numbers have decreased sharply. This year, though, the museums are hoping to welcome fascinated tourists and art experts from around the world in the millions again. Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Thonhauser met with the director of the Vatican Museums, Dr. Barbara Iatta.
For this year, 2022, what are the big things that you're looking forward? What are the exhibits that are really important?
Many projects in a time of restarting and rehaving the museum, not full of visitors, but at least in a number that in some ways help us to go on. This is the year of Canova. Probably in the fall we will celebrate Canova in many different ways with different projects with other institutions.
Antonio Canova was born in 1757 in Treviso, in the north of Italy, and became one of the most important sculptors in the neoclassical period. He was sent by Pope Pius VII to Paris to bring back what Napoleon's troops had stolen from Rome, and especially from the papal collections. This year, the Vatican Museums will not only celebrate him as an artist, but also as a great visionary for conceptualizing a modern museum. He laid important groundwork for what the Vatican Museums are today.
Here you have artifacts of human creativity in a very large range of interests. This is the key and the focus of these universal collections, and of course it's not only religion collection, but the fact that popes during the centuries and cardinals, bishops and lay people at their service preserved them, wanted to, from collection, migrate into museums is so important in terms that these values are the Christian values. What is behind the creativity and these artifacts is such an important aspect for the Christian and the Catholic thought that is so important, is exactly the key of these collections.
The key of this collection is also this openness to humanity as a whole,
exactly.
No? Because there's also a collection of modern art, but we don't really recognize the Catholic Church as being at the forefront of contemporary art. Would you say that this is not really true?
I don't think this is completely true. When Pope established, almost 50 years ago, a contemporary art collection, just at the beginning of his pontificate, he asked all the artists to come and have a meeting in the Sistine Chapel. And in this incredible universal place as the Sistine Chapel, a chapel devoted to, of course, spirituality, but also to art, he, in front of all the artists of that time, not only painters, but sculpture, poets and musicians and other people in the different field of arts, told them, I'm sorry, we have interrupted the dialogue with you, and we need you. We need you because the artist is poet and prophets, and we need poets and prophets, poets that can synthesize values in few words. And a poet in terms of visual art, of course, is someone who can explain with the image different aspect of the spirituality. And prophets because they can go on, they look before others.
They also reach people.
See, and since then, our collection of contemporary art grown. Of course, as is contemporary, of course, is the one who has more acquisition every year.
A poet and prophets, that's a wonderful image.
And with this image of artists who should be poets and prophets, bringing the message of Jesus Christ to the world, we thanked Dr. Iatta and let her return to her museums, a treasure chamber of 5 centuries of culture, history, and faith.